This is an old 4x5 camera, and it's even on an older wooden tripod, and it is the subject of this video. I'm using old strobes and a bunch of grip equipment and some diffusion and a technique called feathering in order to expose the image. I'm going to talk about that a little bit here. It's not going to be so much like other videos on this channel. In other words, I'm not talking about the features of a strobe. But the strobes in the pack that I'm using here are ones that, I've already documented on this channel. Um, and, uh, you know, if you have older equipment and you're looking for, or new equipment as well, it doesn't matter. If you're looking for ideas or subjects to shoot, product photography or still life is a great way, in my opinion, to learn about different aspects of light. And, I'm in the Pacific Northwest. It is the 10th of December in 2023 as I'm recording this and shot it. It's kind of winter, so shooting outside is not the most fun. It's kind of wet and cold here. Even shooting in my garage, which would be the ideal spot for me to do something like this due to the space, it's just too cold to do that. So here are a couple of behind the scenes photos of the lights and the setup. I apologize in advance. It's kind of hard for me to photograph the behind the scenes, but the first light is the main light. It's in a softbox on the right. It's on an old C-stand, an old Mole Richardson C-stand, which I absolutely love. It's built like a tank. The softbox is beat. It's Bowens Red Wing. It would have been a kit softbox, and the inside of it has some sort of plastic coating that's to block light, and you can see where it's worn out. There's some light leakage. Not a lot, but yeah, it looks fine without a light shining through it. It looks kind of worn out in this photo. Behind that is the camera and the tripod. Behind that is black duvetine cloth. So if you're not familiar with that, it is this material that you can get at places that sell photography equipment or studio equipment for films. It's used a lot on film sets. Its claim to fame is it reflects black really, really, really well. So people use it for negative fill. And I'm using it because what's behind the camera, the subject, is really kind of a messy part, and it's a big window. And, I didn't want that crud, if you will. I wanted just a clean background. So this was an easy way for me to do that. And also what we're taking a look at here for the photo is a black subject on a black background. So there's some challenges associated with that, and I was interested in exploring that. There is another light over there. You can see that light is a Profoto D4. We probably don't know that, but that's what it is. It's on an Acute 2 1200 watt second pack. It's being triggered optically. So I'm only triggering one of these strobes through a radio trigger, and the radio trigger I'm using is Bowens Pulsar TX. The Bowens strobes provide the main light and the side light. They have built-in radio triggers already in them. And the last video I did gets into detail on those strobes. I've also done a video on the Profoto pack and strobe. Here is the side light. It's shooting through a roll of sailcloth. It's half grid sailcloth. I have full grid, half grid, quarter grid. It's on a C-stand. Well, it's actually on a light stand. There's a grip arm and a grip head, and I'm just putting the roll on the grip arm and waterfalling, or in other words, just pulling it down like a window shade. The light here is, I'll talk about in a little bit more, but it's being feathered. It's being shot almost parallel, if you will, to the scrim material, and the scrim, or the sailcloth, as it's called, is on the side of the camera. Have a camera, have a tripod. Those are important. I'll get into that a little bit later. But let's take a look at the lights. So The main light gives you this, and all three lights give you this. And so the side light and the back light, they're really bringing up the left side of the image, and they're bringing up the old tripod head here. And the way that I'm working with these lights and the importance of having the tripod is, I think of it as like maybe like a science experiment. And what I'm trying to do is to individually control variables that are in this shot. So typically I would start out with the composition. And once I get the composition that I like, then I want it locked in. And a tripod helps by doing that, because you're going to be doing a lot of trial and error with the placement of your lights, that if you want it to be repeatable, having it on a tripod allows you to do that. The tripod that I use, I have a few of them, but the one that I'm using in this photo is kind of a travel tripod. It's not that heavy. In an ideal world, I would have a really heavy tripod. And the reason for that is that if I bump into it, then I stand less of a chance of disturbing the composition, or worse, knocking the camera over. So on this set, I'm working in a room that's above a 2-stall garage. It's a bonus room in our house, and it's still pretty tight. There's other furniture in here. There's a desk. We have some large plants. It's kind of messy, but so there isn't a lot of room to walk around. There would be more room if I were to set up this set, if you will, in a garage without cars in it. But it's a little bit too cold and too crappy outside in order to do that. So you get the composition, you lock that in. So in this case, I even did a spirit level to the camera on the left to make sure that was level. And then on the subject, I put a spirit level on that to level out the camera, so that in post-production, the only post-production that I really had to do was correct for white balance and crop. I didn't really have to worry about adjusting the photo, let's say the horizon being off. It doesn't take long to set it up, and just saves you time when you're doing the processing on the back end. The main light, so it's in front of the subject and it is to the side of it. It's not hanging over the subject. And that's fairly typical for most of the photos you'll see on this channel. The photos of the strobes are typically using feathering with the light. Maybe in most cases, it's probably going to be in front of the subject, the strobe. But in this case, I sort of put it at an angle. And, the trial and error part on this light is, well, first of all, the other two lights are turned off. And then, do you move it closer? Or you move it farther away? You move it, more towards the subject. You move it further from the subject. You raise it. You lower it. You might angle it a little bit. And I did that. And you put a certain amount of time into it until you get tired of it. And you come up with something like this. Once you get to that point, you turn the light off. You let the power setting stay at the power setting that it was at. You have a good light stand, so the light isn't going to move anywhere. And you go on to the next one. So in this case, if I were to look at the backlight, which is adding a little bit of detail to the tripod head as well as the left side of the image, it's all the same, raising the head, lowering it, turning the power of the strobe up, turning it down, shooting part of the strobe and having it being flagged by that diffusion material, the angle of the strobe. So on that note, if you have modeling lights, and these older strobes do, that can help you with where you want to point your light source. And whatever, you get to a point where you're tired of adjusting, and then you turn it off, and you go on to the next one, which is the side light. And that doesn't provide a lot. It only brings up some of the shiny parts and the tripod legs on the left. But it's feathering again. And, even though I have a large chunk of diffusion, I'm using that because that's what I have. But you could also use a 5-in-1 diffuser and put that on a stand and shoot through that. You don't need diffusion this big. You'll see diffusion like this in the Duvetine. You'll see that used a lot in, well, maybe not the Duvetine, but you'll see negative fill, and you'll see diffusion used in product photography. So those are two rolls of material that I, tend to like to use a lot. And as I said before, the end result is something like this. So this old Bush Pressman camera, beautiful, intricate machine. The body of it's made out of metal. The old Reese tripod is, I think it's made out of ash, or parts of it are ash, and it's really well made. Both are fun to look at, maybe not that much fun to actually use in practice. So I hope this is of interest, and if it is, and I can probably tell by the amount of people that are watching, or leave a comment, I may do another video not using diffusion, but using hard light, which is kind of popular, or has been popular for product photography. So that will be all about creating hard shadows. And the surprise there is I'm going to try to talk about why a 1200 or 2400 watt second pack, one of these older packs, can help you to create a really, really, really hard line. At least that is the theory that I want to try to test out. So, and the good news about those older packs is typically, when they're available, used, they don't cost a lot of money. People are kind of anxious to get rid of them.